You don't go easy on anyone, no.
So what now?
You don't go easy on anyone.
No.
But that was good. That was fun.
We had an easy. I made sure I went easy with you.
You did. I did. I appreciate you not, like, yeah.
Had you watched my videos?
I've watched a lot of them, yeah.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
I didn't think that.
Yeah, some of them I really, really enjoyed. This morning I was watching Nick Vujovic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When times get tough, you need to get round. No need to look backward, put your feet on the ground. Stand up, stand up.
Welcome to TheFallenState. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Don't forget to click Patreon link in the description to support our work. Have with me today a very mamma mia, hola, Cecil, interesting guest, Dr. Anandhi Narasimhan. Narasimhan. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
black.
Narasimhan.
The doctor is an adult, adolescent, and child psychiatrist here in Los Angeles. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to learn a little bit more about you. You're from India.
Yes.
How long have you been over here?
I came here in 1981. I was about 4.5 years old.
And what brought you here?
My parents, so my father was a professor. He had a PhD in biotechnology. And my mother was a doctor. She was an obstetrician. And so they had a lot of career goals. And before I was born, they lived in Switzerland for a while, and they loved it there. And they came back to India because my grandfather had health issues. And they eventually, my father got a job first in the US, and he came, and then a year later he sponsored, we were all, my brother and my mother and I were able to come. And at that time, in India, you start something called pre-kindergarten when you're like 3. So my parents had enrolled me in a Catholic school, Catholic private school. So I had done about 1.5 years or 2 years of my primary education before we moved. So I had that experience, and then I came to the US.
That's amazing. What is the Indian culture like? What is it like?
You know, it's interesting. It's changed a lot, but we are a very family-oriented culture, so there's a really strong belief in family. So that's kind of really signifies, I feel, like kind of the heart of the culture, one. And then secondly, I think India is a very spiritual culture as well. We believe in nonviolence, we believe in treating other people or animals with fairness, things like that. So spirituality and family and respect.
How do you treat animals right?
Well, interestingly, I actually grew up as a vegetarian. And I was actually embarrassed of that when I was younger because when I came to America, like most of my classmates weren't vegetarian, so they always thought it was kind of weird, and they would say, like, what happens if you eat meat? And I would say I catch on fire, and just, to pull their leg and stuff. But, my family was vegetarian, my grandparents were vegetarian, so it was just kind of, that's how my parents were raised, that's how I was raised. And then in high school, I was part of this summer program, and they took us to, it's called the Governor's School, they took us to a slaughterhouse. And when you're a teenager, that's the time where you want to experiment or try different things, or you want to explore. But that kind of put the nail in the coffin for me because I was a little traumatized by that experience. So then after that, I just kind of stuck with that, and as I've gotten older, I feel good about it.
Oh yeah, so you've never eaten meat?
By accident. I've eaten it by accident. In the 80s, they used to put lard in like so many things, like French fries or like cookies, and so there were times that I didn't know, and I did. Right on. But for the most part, I would try not to.
I grew up on a plantation down in Alabama, so I used to slaughter animals.
Mm-hmm. What was that like?
Oh, fun.
Yeah?
Yeah, you take an axe, and you turn the back of the axe, and you hit the hog in the head, knock it out, and then you take the knife and slash the throat, and blood gush everywhere.
And they don't cry?
Like, yes! What?
They don't cry when you do
Me
that?
or the hawk?
Both of you. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, it's
that
a
would-
manly thing, I think.
You know,
Ladies
it's
can't do it.
interesting because in medicine we dissect animals and
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
eventually, and you get used to it. Like you'll
Right.
go to dissection and then you'll have lunch afterwards. So,
Yeah. And so I would take a chicken. My grandmother said, hey, go out there and kill a chicken for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And I would take it right in the head, and the neck pops off, and the chicken lay on the ground kicking. Doesn't that sound like fun?
no. No, it doesn't.
So do you believe in God?
I do believe in something bigger than us. Yeah, yeah.
So God,
Yeah.
are you a Christian?
No, I was raised a Hindu.
Oh, okay. So in India, most people are Hindus. Is that how it goes?
Majority, but there is a large segment of Christians and there is a large segment of Muslims and other religions. Where my parents were from, originally, their ancestors from a state called Kerala, and Kerala has a very large Christian population.
Oh, okay.
So growing up, we had family friends who were Christian. We'd go to parties, you know.
Oh, okay.
My parents actually, I've been to church. I even read at church once. So I've had a lot of exposure to Christianity. So I'm, quite comfortable
Right
with the
on.
religion.
Do you fit in the Indian culture now? You don't seem as though you went to India, you would fit in there. Do you feel apart from it or a part of it when you're there?
I completely feel a part of Indian culture, and I also feel very much a part of American
Yeah,
culture
you seem more
as well.
American than you do Indian.
But I love going to India. Have you ever been?
No, I
You
have
should
not.
go. It's a very sensory experience. It's almost like sensory overload. There's so many sights to see and food to taste and color, because Indians love different colors, so you'll see just a lot of variety of experiences when you go there. So I very much feel like I do both. There's a part of me that's Indian. They're like the family orientation. I really believe in some of those things. And then practices in Western culture, they call it mindfulness, where you just reflect and you think about your emotions and how you would change. And that's also what kind of yoga is about too, is just like getting into that mindful
Right.
state. So I love those things.
Right on.
Yeah.
You don't look Indian. Are your both parents are Indian? Or, so you
yeah.
don't have a black father or anything, or mother?
No, I
Oh,
wish.
you look like a black person. You
I
look
do.
like. Have you been told that?
I've been
look
been
more
told
like-
I look Mexican quite a
Well, I
lot.
can see Mexican, black, but not Indian. You don't look Indian. You can look Indian, but you look more Mexican black or black Mexican or something like that.
I have a funny story about that. Back in the 80s when you took standardized tests at school,
Right.
and you had to write your demographic. And at that time, all they had was black, white, or other. And I was sitting down for a test, and somebody in the class, I think I was in 4th grade or something, someone in the class said, "What's Anandhi gonna put?" And the kid sitting in front of me, he was African American, he turned around and said, "What are you gonna put?" And I said, I don't know where I fit here. And he's like, you're black.
Oh, yeah. And did you write black?
I don't remember. I don't remember what I put.
What made you decide to become a psychiatrist?
That's a great question. I actually wanted to be a surgeon. I actually feel like my personality was kind of suited for that, and I loved being in the operating room. And there's kind of an instant gratification that comes with surgery because you can just fix someone.
Yeah.
But then I did some research on the brain. And my boss, we were looking at children who've had trauma and how that affects the brain. And my boss was a child psychiatrist. And I just had so much respect for him and the work he did and how honest he was about the research. And then as I was doing the research, I was like, gosh, there's so much that we don't know about the brain.
Right.
We know, not everything, but we know a lot about the heart, we know a lot about the liver, but the brain is a new organ that we're discovering, and there's so much to discover. So as I was doing the research, I was like, this is an area that I could sort of be a pioneer, like something, find new things or explore different things. And I love working with children.
You have an amazing resume. You were trained at Harvard, Yale, and Duke. And was that training in psychiatry? At those
Yeah,
three
well,
schools?
those Harvard and Yale were rotations. Duke was my main adult residency training, and then UCLA was my child fellowship training. That's how I ended up in LA and just stayed in LA after that.
And did you study medicine in India?
Yes,
or
I
over-
did.
or in
I did.
India?
Yeah, that's where I did surgery and different community medicine and different
Oh, I got you.
specialties. And then I came.
And you're double board certified by the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology.
Yes.
Wow, that's a lot of education. Are
Yeah.
you like sick of education now? You don't want to hear about it?
That's the interesting. You go into medicine and you're like, oh, there's the light at the end of the tunnel, but no, the education is lifelong. Like I have to keep up to date with my field. I have to read articles, I have to read journals, I have to attend lectures, I have to get what we call continuing medical education credits. So yeah, it's a lot of upkeep and a lot of time. It's a lot of time.
So do you sometimes wish, I wish I had never gone to school, just be a regular, normal person?
Well, I think, I'm lucky. I feel like I'm doing my calling,
Oh, okay.
which I think is really nice. I
Yeah.
mean, and I can't sing. If I sang like Mariah Carey,
You do that, huh?
I might be in a different career. But, I feel like these are the skills I've developed. And, when you come, like my family was educated. So
Yeah.
they expected that from me. So I can't say that it came out of nowhere. There was an
Right.
expectation that I would,
You
get so
resent
many.
them for that? Did they
No, when I was
traumatize you?
younger, I came home because a good friend of mine always had beautifully curled hair because her mom was a hairdresser and would do her hair. And I came home and went to my mom. I said, Mom, why couldn't you be a hairdresser? Why'd you have to become a doctor?
That's right.
So, no, as I got older, I really respect what my parents have done and their sacrifices and how much they did for my brother and I, to come to this country,
Right.
because they didn't have to
That's right.
leave, but they wanted us to have a better life and they wanted us to contribute to society. So,
So your brother's well educated as well?
yes, I'm afraid so. He's also a physician.
Oh, he is?
Yeah. He works at Howard.
Oh, okay.
He's a family medicine doctor
In
at Howard.
Washington, D.C.?
In D.C., yeah.
That's a black university, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Amazing. I want to talk to you about childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
How do you define childhood trauma? How do you define that?
Yeah, childhood trauma is any type of adverse experience that a child experiences that can alter how they function in the world. It can be abuse, it can be neglect, it can be witnessing abuse, it can be witnessing or being part of like a natural disaster, or even medical trauma, a child who has a medical illness and they're suffering, or having a parent or a sibling with a medical illness. That can be a source of trauma as well.
At what age can children be traumatized?
Very early.
Like newborn or?
Interestingly, research on toddlers, infants, shows that like they actually can respond to the distress of their mother. So if there's domestic violence or something like that happening at home, and the mother's very distressed, the baby can actually feel it.
Oh, yeah.
So
they
if
could
you've
be-
noticed some women who are just like so chill and calm, like sometimes you feel like there's a reflection in the baby of that kind of demeanor. So children at a very young age can be affected by trauma.
So they can be traumatized in the womb.
Yeah, so a lot of the children I treat have had mothers who did drugs or drank alcohol during pregnancy. So that actually affected their own brain development, and there's certain parts of the brain, the developing brain in the womb, that can be affected. So something like that, depending on what the mother has done,
Right.
or there's, domestic violence, if she's pushed or shoved or hit, or, that can affect the baby's development. So yeah, they can be affected in the womb.
I noticed that a lot of mothers are angry while they're pregnant, and the kids, and during pregnancy, are the kids affected by the mother's anger?
Yeah, so that's interesting, because what happens during pregnancy, and as men, unfortunately, you may don't experience the same way, but there's this huge hormonal fluctuation. Certain hormones rise, certain hormones decrease, and now we've got research that's showing that those hormonal shifts really affect our mental health. So, a lot of pregnant women will say, I'm just so moody, I'm so irritable, and they can't control it because it's a hormonal shift that's taking place. And the body does that to prepare the womb, to prepare the development for the fetus, but it does a number on their mental health sometimes.
So when a child is traumatized, is that child traumatized physically in the brain or spiritually in the brain?
It can be both. I think can be both. I mean, as a woman of science who studies a science, there is a lot of emerging research on spirituality, and I very strongly believe, for so many of my patients, like, the pastor's a step ahead of me in treatment. Like, they get so much healing from their church or temple or wherever.
Yeah.
So, in terms of a spiritual trauma, I think, very possible. But we do know that trauma affects the developing brain. It can alter the structure of the brain. It can alter the hormones in the body. We develop things called stress hormones when we feel danger. So a child can have elevated levels of stress hormones if they've experienced trauma.
I noticed that a lot of, I might say most, and maybe all, but I like to say not all, but most mothers traumatize their children by turning them away from the father, because how women hate men and they hate the fathers. Have you noticed that women hate men?
Some can hate men. Some
and
can.
So they turn the children away from the father toward them, and that tends to traumatize the children. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it is sad when a child comes to me and they don't have a relationship with their father, and some of them don't have a relationship with their mother. It's very sad. Or it's also sad that they grow up without belief in family or belief in like seeing what that looks like, what a good relationship looks like. And that makes me sad, because I want them to feel that kind of love and that kind of family unit, because children do better when they're part of a family, right? Like,
absolutely.
So, but life is interesting. Sometimes, a woman or a man even has to flee an abusive situation, or they have a spouse who has an addiction and that person needs to get help, and there's all kinds of curveballs that life sometimes throws us. Even when we have the best intentions. Like, I was just talking to a patient the other day who was telling me her story about how she met this man, and he was just so wonderful to her, and then they had children, and then things just spiraled, and she had to flee the situation, but she didn't know it. She didn't know that was going to happen.
Why? I've noticed that. I wanted to ask. So when children are traumatized by being turned away from their fathers, is that a mental trauma or a spiritual trauma?
Sometimes children who don't know their fathers, they haven't had the trauma of him being in their life and then out of their life. So they don't even know, because their experience is new, so they don't know life otherwise.
Right.
So I definitely do think that it's hard being raised by one parent.
It is. So is it a spiritual trauma though, or mental?
I think it can be. I think
Yeah.
it can be a spiritual trauma. Yeah.
I've seen that a lot, and I've noticed that a lot of kids are angry, because they don't have their fathers around.
Yeah.
They're angry at the mother. Is it normal for children to be angry? If they were never traumatized, would they naturally be angry, or does that come as a result of some type of trauma?
Yeah. I mean, I think anger we all can experience at some level, at some time, some more than others. But yeah, when you've had trauma, you can be more irritable than you would be
Right.
otherwise, including children. So sometimes, and remember that children aren't good at expressing themselves. They don't always know what words to use to say, I feel scared, I feel worried. Instead, they act out or they get into fights or something like that because they don't know how to talk about it.
Do you believe that you become like the person that traumatized you? Because I notice that a lot of males have anger, and have anger, and they're like their mothers. They get angry because it's not normal for a male to have anger. Any male that has anger is a woman. Have you noticed that they act like women? They get angry. They overreact. They're emotional like a woman. Is it possible that traumas can cause you to become like the person that traumatized you?
Yes, very much. It can, but it's not a given. I also strongly believe you can rewrite your life and not make, and I often tell people, your past doesn't have to be your future.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that men are like women?
It depends on the man, it depends on the woman. Yeah.
But you have noticed, being a psychiatrist, you have noticed a lot of men act like women?
I don't know if you mean like stereotypically or...
Like emotional, moody.
Yeah.
They get angry really fast.
You mean there's a lot of men with PMS? Yeah.
They act like the women.
Yeah.
Is that normal for a man to be that way?
It depends. I mean, clearly we don't want negative emotions to be overriding. Like that shouldn't be your main experience in life, that you just wake up angry, go to bed angry.
Would you want an emotional man or a non-emotional man? Are you married?
I am married.
And so is your husband emotional or non-emotional?
He is like super emotionally intelligent, I would say. Like
He's emotional?
he's emotionally intelligent.
What does that mean?
So that means like he can handle me. Like if I'm upset or something, he's just really good at communicating. He's really good at like understanding and empathizing. That's what I mean by that.
But he himself is not emotional like a woman.
I think he has emotions.
But he doesn't act like a woman emotionally, right?
He doesn't sound like one, no. Yeah.
Does he act like one?
Depends on the woman, depends on the man, Some
No, I mean your husband,
some
does he-
women are really stoic. Like I'm in medicine. I mean, there are some
Yeah.
women, you don't see much emotion coming from them at all. And then there's some women who, you do.
So let me ask you this. Would you prefer your husband to be emotional or not? Not emotional.
How about somewhere in the middle? Like in the middle. Like somebody who, okay, if, God forbid, someone close to us passed away and he had no emotion or something, it'd be a little like, come on, shed a little tear or something,
Yeah, it'd be like,
so-
he dead.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. I don't want somebody who's totally non-emotional or someone who can kill a chicken and have no emotion about it.
That's right.
Okay.
Chicken and cows and everything.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Knock the cow in a minute.
Wow. I'm sorry.
I want to ask you about self-esteem, because I know you dealt with that a lot. Define self-esteem.
Self-esteem is where you understand your own worth as a human being, as a person, as one that is worthy of love and respect, and you feel good about yourself.
And where does a person get self-esteem from?
They can get it from their parents, from other family members, from school, from the work that they do. Like, for example, a lot of people speaking in front, or public speaking is really like a big thing for a lot of people. But the more they do it, the more their confidence grows in their ability to do it. So sometimes you can get it from experiences. And sometimes it's a person. I had a teacher in 3rd grade or 4th grade, and on the weekends she would come and pick me up and take me to museums, take me to like outdoor classical music concerts, or like she took me to a wreath making class. And she believed in me, you know, and I felt really good about myself that somebody else, you know, gave me that kind of love, you know, she wasn't getting paid for it, you know.
Who are you closest to, your father or your mother?
Both, but my father passed away unfortunately in 2013, but he's still very much in my heart.
Were you closest to him while he lived, or your mother?
I was close to both of them.
About that evenly, or one?
I think when I was younger, maybe a little bit more my dad, but now I'm, you know, closer to my mom. Yeah.
Okay. And so does a good, healthy self-esteem come from the father or from the mother to the children?
I think it can come from either. Yeah. Yeah. And my parents were always big on, I was shy when I was young, and they were always telling me to speak up, speak up. And I hated that, because I'm like, just let me be, you know, but I understand why. They wanted me to stand up for myself and have a voice and not be afraid of it.
Right. I've noticed that when it comes between men and women, boys and girls, males seem to be more, have a sense of self-esteem as opposed to a woman. Why is that?
Again, I think it depends on
women tend to have low self-esteem. Men tend to have high self-esteem.
It might be how they were raised sometimes. If you're raised in a home where that valued, you know, a man and giving the man confidence, and the man was the one who worked, or, you know, it could be that for a boy growing up, that's where they got their sense of self-esteem. And it depends on the culture that you come from, because in some cultures, you know, there's some conditioning, we call it, you know, like where the sexes are treated differently and raised differently.
Yeah, women are treated better, and that's bad.
Is it?
Right.
What makes it bad?
It causes women to go out of control. Because you notice how women, when they can't have the power, they can't have because it's not natural for women to be leaders. If you give it to them by government, they go nuts.
Really?
Have you noticed that?
Actually, it's interesting. In India, a lot of very prominent people holding high government official positions are women.
Wow, that's horrible. Isn't that horrible? No wonder India is weak.
I think it depends on the woman. And you know what? I'm in medicine. There's a lot of female doctors, and some of them are really good doctors. You know?
I would never go to a female doctor.
You wouldn't?
No.
Okay. There's a female doctor that I know that I would trust my life with her.
Really?
She's so good, yeah.
But they're not doctors naturally. They're doctors because there are laws passed in government for women.
Nobody is
women
naturally
get
a
special
doctor.
treatment, and so they are pushed for by being treated special. But with men, it's natural to become a doctor. You don't need some lawyer that says, let the woman go or let the man go.
Okay.
Men naturally are scientists and doctors and things. Am I right about that?
I don't know. I didn't grow up a man, so I don't know.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
but
in
yes,
this country,
I think it was natural for men to have certain professions.
Yeah.
Like science, or you know, and there weren't.
And so
that
that's
many
why I
women.
would be afraid to have a female doctor.
Because you
Plus,
feel
I wouldn't
like.
want her looking at me, you know, privately.
Have you ever had a female doctor?
No.
So you always choose to go to a male doctor? Okay.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of women don't want to go to, you know, they'd rather
Right,
have
they'd
a
rather
woman
see a
doctor
female
for
doctor.
certain things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
And
sense.
then you may go to a woman doctor, she's grouchy. You know, she's mad at her husband, or some man looked at her wrong. And she'll take it out on me on the operating table.
You know, it's interesting in like Saudi Arabia, they only will allow women doctors to treat women patients, you know?
Yeah.
So they don't have enough, so they will import female doctors from other countries and put them up really nicely and everything so that they can treat their women.
Nice.
Would you live there?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah. If I can get a male doctor. Is your wife, I mean your husband, is he the head of you?
It depends on what. Yeah, I think in some respects,
Do you obey him?
I don't think he would think I do. You know, I listen to him and I take his opinions and I listen to what he has to say. Like, and I really value his perspective. Like, he'll tell me, "Oh, you shouldn't have looked at that. Look at it this way," or he'll change my perspective. And so I think he's helped. So I really respect him in that way. Yeah.
But there are times you disobey him.
I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like I'm a servant, so I don't feel like there is such a thing, but I don't know exactly the word disobey, but you know, I may disagree with him occasionally. Yeah.
I do a lot of counseling, and men and women, but mostly men, and I have advised them if they want to start a family and they want a wife and kids, not to marry an educated woman, because educated women tend not to make good wives and mothers. Am I wrong?
You know, funny you ask that because that is something I grappled with for many, many years. And, you know, I had people tell me, okay, well, if you want a career and a family life, you have to kind of balance it. And it's interesting because we don't tell men that. We don't tell a male neurosurgeon, hey, you got to like knock off your career if you want a wife and kids.
You know why that is, right?
Yeah, I do know why that is.
And why is it?
Well, because I think, like you said, you know, traditionally, those were the careers that were meant for men, and that, you know, traditionally men did. And so it was a given that a man went and did this, and the woman stayed home with the children. I think it's interesting because in America, even though I think we're socially evolved in a lot of ways compared to some other parts of the world, but you know, professionally, sometimes I feel like it's hard to be a woman and have this big career and then get maternity leave, adequate maternity leave, or be able to take care of your children in the way you want.
That's right.
And I have a lot of colleagues who struggle with that. Like it's hard, you know. And right now with COVID, you know, so many people, their work has completely changed. People, you know, they come home and they have to shower as soon as they walk in. You know, they can't hug their kids right away and all that because they're working, and it's tough. I think it's tough. But if it were just men in medicine or some other fields, like we'd have a shortage.
We will also have peace on earth.
Would we? Did we before?
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of wars were fought by men.
Right. A man's supposed to fight a good war. It's healthy.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
You agree?
No, actually, because I used to work at the VA hospital, and I've treated quite a few veterans, and my heart I really have a soft spot for the veterans.
Right.
And some of them, they've gone through so much.
Which is best for a good self-esteem, to have one parent in the home or both parents for children?
Oh, I think the two and other family. I mean, in Eastern cultures, they say, you know, it takes a village to raise a child. You have a whole community raising children, and there's something really great about just sharing that responsibility, and helpful, I think.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, one parent isn't super stressed out and just burned out. You know, they get some help, hopefully.
Right.
You know? But that's not always the case. I don't think it's always, you know.
I want to ask you A couple of things I want to ask. Number one, we have a terrorist attack upon America right now by this radical group, Antifa and Black Lives Matter, very radical communist group. They are burning, as you know, they are burning buildings, killing people, robbing and raping, and just really out of control. Is that traumatizing the children to see that?
Yeah, you know, I was interviewed about some of the acts of violence that we've seen. And I think that, you know, what we know, the research shows us, is that if children are viewing images, graphic images over and over again, like what happened after 9/11, a lot of those children got traumatized.
Right.
So, and I think any organization or group, if it's thousands of people, like for example the American Medical Association or something, there may be a few people who engage, like what you're saying, engage in these horrible acts, and it kind of distracts from what the message the Medical Association might be trying to say, right?
So this terrorist attack upon America right now by Black Lives Matter, Antifa and others, that is traumatizing the kids if they see it happening.
Yeah, I don't consider Black Lives Matter a terrorist group.
You do not?
No,
Why
I
not?
don't, because...
Why not?
Okay, so I think, you know, because of cell phones, a lot of things that happen are recorded now, right?
Yeah.
And then it's put up on social media or whatever, and then people are seeing this, right? And people themselves are getting traumatized. A lot of African Americans have higher levels of certain emotions and feeling traumatized watching these images. So I think what happens is then there's just a lot of pain, and people wanted a way to deal with the pain or make some
that's
changes.
Not a way to deal with it, though.
Yeah, and violence is not.
No.
Violence is not.
Did
But I
you-
don't think it's everybody who's doing that. I think the whole movement, the majority of it was supposed to be a peaceful movement, right?
But I don't think it ever meant to be.
Really?
No. Number one, did you know it was Black Lives Matter was founded by a bunch of fat black radical lesbians who say that they are Marxists, and their whole thing is to turn, they hate God, they hate the nuclear family, they hate the unborn children. They want to turn America into a socialist society. It's not about George Floyd or slavery or racism or Jim Crow. It's about changing America. That's pretty radical, don't you think?
That wasn't my understanding. My understanding was it was about
They
you know,
lied to
people.
you.
Okay.
So now that you know, that's pretty radical. You don't support that, do you? And then they write big letters, yellow letters in the streets, and they mark on people, Black Lives Matter. It has no meaning. It's just a bunch of mess. Is that radical?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd use the word, or maybe radical is an appropriate term, but I think
Because
there's a reason it happened. I think that.
Because they hate God, they hate good.
So let me ask you this, Jesse. With things like what we saw with George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery or Breonna Taylor, how is that to be handled? How are those things to be handled?
They should-
Individually, with that local
individually,
jurisdiction?
they should go to court or whatever it takes and handle it like normal people. Because those incidents happened to those people. They didn't happen to every black person.
That's true.
They didn't happen, and every white person is not responsible for that. Every cop is not. It's just that situation. That's why we have laws, and that's why we have courts.
But I think
to
it's
deal with things.
understandable that it brings about a lot of fear, right? Like,
Not for me.
Not for you?
No,
Okay.
because it's made up. It's not real. I'm not afraid of cops.
I actually work pretty closely with law enforcement.
And so
with the
you're not
work I
afraid
do.
of them, right?
No.
Have
I'm
you ever
not.
been thrown down and choked?
No, I haven't. That hasn't happened yet.
See that?
So.
It's all made up. Now you agree that Black Lives Matter is radical?
No. I support Black Lives Matter.
why would
I
you
don't
support-
the fringe, violent part that you're probably talking about. I don't support that, but
why
I
would you
support.
support a radical, fat, black
Well,
lesbian
my
group?
understanding was it was a supposed to be a peaceful protest
No,
organization
it never meant for
that
that.
stood up for people who were killed that were innocent, that shouldn't have.
But they weren't innocent. All the people who killed were criminals. Not one innocent in that I think it's something like 9 or 10 or something. Not one innocent.
Yeah, but do they all deserve, even if someone has had a past of criminal activity, does that, I don't think that we are judge and jury about whether they live or not,
But
right?
they should have thought of that before they overreacted to the cop when they were stopped. So they get what they deserve in life. If they had followed the instructions of the cops, they probably would be alive
Ahmaud
today.
Arbery was just jogging and he was literally chased down, so.
Who's Ahmaud Arbery?
He was a gentleman who was shot by 3 men, 3 white men.
Oh, down in
Georgia.
But we don't know all the detail yet. It looked like he was trying to steal. You know how black people love to steal. He
Do
was
you?
going into an empty building and trying to steal.
Well, there were like so
It
many.
seems.
I don't know about that. There was nothing to steal from there, and
But he was looking at, sometimes there's like leftover tools and things like that when you're building a home. I've seen that happen a lot with the blacks. Have you?
No.
Oh. So I got to ask you this. I saw you on a CNN interview, and you were talking about the children of illegal aliens, and they was like, illegally coming across the border, and some with parents, some without. Some are being used to just get over here, pretending that they're the children, that they're the parents, and so they were locked up in a little safety place until time to go back. Whose fault is that? Is it the parents' fault or the government, our government fault?
So, the United States has what we call a sovereign prerogative to enforce immigration policy, right?
Right.
We
Yeah.
have the right to protect borders, and I'm not a border security expert, and I don't
Right.
claim to be.
Yeah.
I think that is very true. My issue as a child psychiatrist was that I was interviewed about what children can face if they're separated from their parents and they're put in certain conditions where they don't have hygiene, they're sitting in dirty diapers, or they
Right.
don't have toothbrush, things like that, or no one's really taking care of them. So I was talking about that. So that's what I was interviewed for. I volunteer for an organization called Physicians for Human Rights, where I do asylum evaluations. And the people that I meet doing these evaluations, they're running away from some horrendous situation, and they have like evidence of human torture and things like that. So, when I'm doing these evaluations, like if that was me, like sometimes if your life is in danger, sometimes you just run, right? And some of the people I talked to, they had no desire to go anywhere else. They wanted to stay where their family was, where they grew up. They didn't want to leave.
Right.
A lot of people that I speak to. So it's complicated, I mean, I hear the argument that, well, whose fault it is. And that I think that's a complicated issue. But as a doctor, I have the ethical duty to think about the children, right? And think about what's good for their health, not about whose fault is.
So I'm asking, as an expert and a human being, whose fault is it? The ones who are bringing their kids here illegally, or is it our fault? Do we have a responsibility to take care of men, women, and children, just children who have broken the law and they are criminals?
Yeah.
Do we have to take care of them?
Yeah, so, according to international law, we have the sovereign prerogative to enforce immigration policies, but the United States also has a moral and legal responsibility to at least look into the eyes of these children and acknowledge their humanity, right? Like, they're humans, so dealing with them like humans,
So is it the parents' fault for bringing them here illegally?
I think it's complicated.
Because I've gone down to the borders and I noticed that most of the parents and those children are not coming from bad situations.
So
They're just
a lot
coming-
of the ones that I meet
Yeah,
are. So
they're
I
just
may
coming
not
here.
know everybody, right?
They're just coming here for government handouts and whatever, right? So is it the parents' fault that the kids are suffering, or is it the USA fault?
I think it's the entire situation. Yeah, you can blame some parents for wanting to cross the border illegally for not the right reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do we have a responsibility to take care of their children when they come here? Or should we
Well, I
just
think
ship them back over
I think we have a responsibility not to do further harm to the children.
by sending them back? Or, I mean, when we put them away in a little room or something, we don't have a responsibility to buy them diapers and food and all that because their parents decide to bring them here illegally. And so the parents showed a lack of love by bringing their kids illegally to another country, right? So we're not responsible for that. Am I right?
Well, I disagree with. I mean, why cause more trauma on a child? I think that's the argument that's given that you know it's not our fault. So you know, but that doesn't. But they're here. Like they come. So what are you going to do then? You know, they're already here. Like
Lock them up and send them back. Am I
yeah,
right?
and that has happened. That has happened.
But I've noticed that, and I don't know if you were necessarily doing it on this interview, but I noticed that there are a lot of Americans blaming America for it, and I know they're doing it for the votes. You know, they want to get the votes and stuff, but it's not our fault if the parents decide to come from Mexico or wherever they come from illegally, because there's a way to come in the right way. And if they choose not to come the right way, they should pay the consequence. They and their children should pay the consequence of that, right? If they have to suffer, they just have to suffer.
The United States is a democracy that allows people to seek asylum. So there are some people who are legitimately seeking asylum, I think. So.
Most are not, though. I'm telling you.
Okay.
Most are not. When I become president,
So what's your
I'm
answer?
shipping them back.
Yeah.
What's my answer?
Yeah.
I'm going to put up a big, beautiful wall around the borders, and then I'm going to have troops all around the walls to make sure they don't come.
Okay.
That make sense?
If you think that would work,
Oh, yeah. You don't think a wall will work?
it's got to be a pretty long wall, right?
Oh, it's going to be a
Yeah,
long wall
yeah.
around the border and way high. And then I know that Mexicans like to climb, so at the top I'm going to have an electric wire. That makes sense?
Yeah. Good luck with that.
I want to ask you about, because time is going by, I want to ask you about little boys, boys and men are under attack, and especially boys. They are now given medication for something called ADD. Is that a right approach to deal with boys?
Yeah, so that's also a very interesting question. A lot of children can have symptoms that look like ADHD because they're going through other stuff,
Yes.
like trauma or whatever. So they're like hyperactive or having trouble focusing, and it could be a number of other things. But sometimes there's a percentage of people who do have this it's a kind of an innate ADHD, and we see it in families. Like one of their parents might have had it, and it makes it hard to, you know. I have an interesting viewpoint because I don't think it's natural for us to sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day and not move. I mean, we're asking a lot from children to do that to begin with, and then, you know, if a teacher gets tired of a child wanting to like jump around a little bit, that's more unnatural. So, you know, my philosophy is I'm actually very conservative on medication, like
Right.
prescribing medication. I like to do everything else besides that if we can,
Yes.
and then, you know, not have that as part of the picture.
Amazing.
So if that means like sometimes giving a child like one of those exercise balls in the classroom to bounce around on, or getting up and giving them breaks every 15 minutes or something like that.
Nice.
Those are better, and a lot of children benefit from individual attention. So it doesn't all need to be like treated with medication.
I'm glad to hear that. Experts warn that over 90% of the school shooters were on that medication, and they accused them of having some type of depression or ADD, and 90% of the school shooters was on medication. Do you believe had they not been on medication and done it the way you said, another way, without the medication, we would have had that higher percentage carrying out school shooting?
That's hard to tell. I think sometimes people are not on medication and they're also committing suicide.
Right.
Doing so,
Yeah.
that's a tricky question in the sense that, look, medication isn't perfect. All meds have side effects. We
Yeah.
don't know, people respond differently to different medications. But until we find a way to figure this out.
Go natural, the way you mentioned earlier, without that.
But,
natural.
you know, yes, except that some people are really suffering. Like, I have patients who have, like, schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, and if they were not on any medicine, they are like, you know, sometimes when you see people on the street
Yeah.
talking to themselves, or they don't seem like they're all cognitively with it, you know, and then they can't function. So sometimes, and I don't like those meds because they
Right.
have so many side effects, and I don't like putting people on it, but for some of my patients, it's either one bad thing with some side effects, or they're the illness that is organic and just happens.
I've noticed that most of the people who are talking to themselves, they are angry, and 99.999, but not all the time, 99.999% of the time, it starts in the homes, and so they're angry about imperfect parents. Something happened in the home, and so they're spiritually talking to themselves. And so if you get them to forgive, go and let the anger go, then they come back to a normal thinking and normal being. It's just that they're angry and no one dealt with the anger, it just get worse. It causes you to talk to yourself and do crazy things. It's not necessarily a medical or physical issue. It's more of a spiritual problem.
Okay.
Have you noticed that?
I think that can be true. Of course, you know, I see a portion of the population. I see more people who are severely ill that end up coming to the doctor, right?
Right, yeah.
So there may be a lot of people who you're talking about who I don't see as a doctor.
So I gotta ask this, and then I gotta put you on the hot seat. It's time to
Okay.
put my guest on the hot seat. And I'm gonna need you to answer these questions quickly as possible. But first I gotta ask you, what is love?
Oh, love is life and warmth and a sense of compassion and empathy.
And what is a man?
A man can be all those things, I think.
Could be all those things? Okay, so I gotta put you on the hot seat, all right? And I need you to answer these as quickly as possible.
The hot seat.
Is society suffering due to the decline in belief in God?
It depends. I think the answer is it depends.
Are most Indian men alpha males or beta males?
Oh, I was afraid that was going to come up. Oh, I think there's both.
Are most alpha or beta?
I don't know, actually. I don't know most Indian men. I live in America. There's-
How about American men? Are most American men alpha males or beta males?
Can you explain what alpha and beta means again to me?
Beta is weak. They look to the woman or they look to someone else to guide them. They're all emotional. They have fear of standing up to people. Beta is perfect love.
Okay.
And you
I don't
have
know
no
the
fear.
answer to that question. I'm sorry.
Okay. Is the body positive movement dangerous?
Body positive movement. What does that mean? Does that mean moving your body, or
No, they have this thing going now where they're trying to make fat women be attractive and, you know, whatever size you want to be or whatever you want to look like, they're trying to make you accept that as an attractive or normal thing. Is that
Well,
a
I
good
think
idea?
whatever is good for our health is a good idea. Like if you know, being at a healthy body weight that is healthy for you, I think that's a move in the right direction.
Have you ever done LSD?
No,
Is sex love?
no.
Is it right and good for a man to be the head of his wife?
I'm not going to answer that because that's a trick question with you.
Is it racist for white Americans to be proud of their heritage?
No.
Can you choose your gender, or are you born with it?
You're born a certain gender.
Can who is your personal hero, either living or dead?
My father.
Is anger normal?
To some degree.
Do you love the Great White Hope?
What's that?
Do you love the Great White Hope?
I don't know what the Great White Hope is. Like
never heard-
Casper the Friendly Ghost or Santa Claus
No,
or
the president.
the president. I don't know
Donald
him.
Trump.
I haven't met him. I don't know him.
Do
Do
you love
you?
him?
Have you met him?
Not yet.
Okay.
Do you love him?
I haven't. I don't know him. I don't
You
know.
have to know him to love him?
It depends. I think
You
it
don't love
depends.
everybody?
I have love for humanity.
All humanity?
I'm not Jesus, so
You're not Jesus?
I'm not Jesus.
Amazing.
Maybe
Well-
next lifetime.
Well, thank you for taking the hot seat.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to promote? Yes, website or books or
No,
your
I'm good.
business?
Just, yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you have fun?
I did have fun.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming. That was
Thank
amazing.
you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you all for tuning in. I absolutely appreciate it. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the reason I have this shirt today is, did you know that July is White History Month?
No, I didn't.
So we're celebrating White History Month in
I
July.
see, okay.
Happy White History Month. I forgot to tell you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So July is White History Month. This is our 3rd year of celebrating it. And so that's why I'm celebrating white. July just feels white. Doesn't July feel white?
I don't know how to answer that.
You know, summertime, vacation time, relax time, the 4th of July, sightseeing. Doesn't that feel white?
If you put it that way, yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
So let me hear from you. Don't forget merch. We have our merch there, Patreon, and all that good stuff. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And happy White History Month. Thank you.
Thank you. You don't go easy on anyone, no.
So what now?
You don't go easy on anyone.
No.
But that was good. That was fun.
We had an easy. I made sure I went easy with you.
You did. I did. I appreciate you not, like, yeah.
Had you watched my videos?
I've watched a lot of them, yeah.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
I didn't think that.
Yeah, some of them I really, really enjoyed. This morning I was watching Nick Vujovic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was at my wedding, actually. He was
He was?
by accident. He was staying on a hotel room above the bridal suite, and he was watching my wedding. It was
Wow.
interesting.
And
Yeah.
so you like my video?
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And you notice I went easy with you. That's why I saw you on there. I knew you're not like a mean woman, so I didn't want to treat you that way.
No. I'm not like a fighter either.
Right, I can tell.
So thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
This was fun.
I made sure not to go hard on you.
Thank you.
Next time on The Fallen State.
All the way from Florida. He even flew in during the Chinese virus thing with a mask on. Are you black or white or what are you?
I'm a mulatto.
So you're on pot right now?
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you high right now?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I do a good impression of you. Want to hear it?
Yeah.
Is your mom a slut?
How about all this transgender stuff?
Oh, that's freaking insane.
Yeah.
We have to pretend to be insane with them.
You never feel anger at all.
For instance, we watched the country freaking crumble for the last 3 months. That angered me. Beautiful country that we built, and it's just getting destroyed by people that don't know anything about anything. Can I say something real quick to wrap it up?
Absolutely.
This city sucks.
Oh, yeah, I was
LA
going to ask you what you think about LA.
This is a cesspool. Drug addicts. It's disgusting.
it's a mess.
It's a dirty Democrat policies, man.
Thanks for watching The Fallen State. We need your continued support. Donate to my nonprofit here. Subscribe and like the videos here. And tell everybody and their mama about the show.